Hello, sculpture students. I'm going to talk to you today about glazing. There's a lot to know about glazing. There's a lot to learn about glazing, but I'm going to try to cover the basics for you so you can at least get started. But just know there's a lot of options and a lot to learn. So let's first talk about glazes. All right. First, we have these underglazes. All right. You can use these on wet clay before you bisque fire it. But you can also use them on bisque-fired clay. If you want total control over your color and your lines and etc., this stuff works a lot like paint because it's essentially liquid clay with coloring in it. You can mix it like paint, use it like paint, etc. And then you can always put a clear coat on top. This was done with underglaze. I'm going to fire this up soon, but there is these little decals you can put on with underglaze. This is a blue underglaze with white decals. We've got different versions of those that you can use. It's kind of like screen printing. So that's another cool thing that you can do with underglazes. You can also do sgraffito with underglaze. So you can put underglaze on wet clay, carve through it, but that's a different process. So underglazes is something you can use on a bisque-fired piece of clay. Bisque-fired, remember, is it's about halfway fired. It's not all the way fired, so they can soak in those glazes before you fire it again. We also have the satin matte glazes. Okay, these are the Amico satin matte glazes. They're called satin matte because they're going to end up with a satin finish. You can mix these glazes together. If you go on the Amico website, amico.com, you can look at the different combinations that might exist, but there's not really a chart. Sometimes you're experimenting, and that's okay too. This is what that finish looks like. You can see it's a nice satin finish, not super glossy, but it does have a really nice finish to it. So those are the satin glazes. We also have the Celadon glazes. Okay, the Celadon glazes are transparent, so they're a color, but they're pretty transparent. Again, you can mix them, but you're not going to mix the Celadon with the satin matte. You could, but you don't know how it's going to end up, and it might not go well. Okay. So these are the satin matte or the Celadon glazes. Again, semi-transparent. You can see through them. So in this example, I have the black underglaze that I did some designs in underneath here, and then I used the Celadon glaze fog on top. You can still see all the designs because it is transparent. Okay. Now, you definitely always want to do at least 3 layers of glaze. Whatever color you're going to do, you want to do 3 layers of it. So the first layer soaks in, the second layer looks pretty good, third layer starts looking better. Even on this one, you can see at the bottom, it still shows a lot of the brushwork. I probably could have put maybe 4 layers of glaze on there to really make it look good. Okay. Don't forget that the glazes also change color. Okay. So the glazes are made with metals, oxides, raw materials, right? So they're going to change color when they get hot. So this, you might think, is going to turn pink, but it's actually going to be a cobalt blue. So you have to trust the process of these things heating up. If you've ever seen like a copper pipe, when you heat it up, it'll change different colors. Same idea. The metals will change color when they're heated up. So you have to really pay attention to the label and know what you're working with. Okay. The other glazes that we have the Potter's Choice glazes. And these are not made to be mixed with each other. Again, physically, yes, you could. Is it going to turn out well? I don't know. They're really specific recipes, and they will do different things. Okay. Again, this one goes on white, but it will be a really nice frosted turquoise, like the inside of this one. Okay. So they will change color. And then we also have some high fire glazes. This one is scarlet red. It turns out exactly like you think it's going to turn out. That's this red right here. So we have some of those as well. Now, I said you can't really mix them, but you can layer them. Layering is a huge part of glazing. For example, if I have the frosted turquoise and I have my obsidian black, okay, this is what happens to the frosted turquoise when fired on top of the obsidian black. It kind of turns like a yellow, and there's these little specks of blue in there that you can see. So these things will react to each other and change. And you can also layer the Celadons. So in this example, I went through a bunch of different colors and layered them to show what would happen if like you layered the pink on top of the orange. That's what's going to happen if you did these 2 colors layered up. That's what happens. So you can layer the celadons as well to get different effects. Okay. One of the better things you can do before you get too far down the road is you can go on the Amico website and go to their charts. So they've got different charts on there. I just printed it out so you could see it instead of going to the website. But it'll show you what happens with all these different colors on top of obsidian. Or, for example, what happens when you layer these different Potter's Choice glazes on top of the fire brick. So using that website is really, really useful. The last thing that we have is we do have the stuff called wax resist. So you can put this on the bottom of your piece to avoid getting glaze on the bottom of it, because we don't want the glazes to stick to the kiln shelf when it's in the kiln. But you can also use it to do cool designs. So in this one, you can see where there's little red designs kind of coming through. A little bit harder to see, but that's where I put wax. So I put the chun plum color down, I put little designs in wax, I put another color on top, and it still shows through. The wax resists the other glazes. So those are all the things that we have. There's a lot, and we can talk about it individually, but you have a lot of options there. So you have, I'm just going to recap real quick, you have your under glazes, right, that you can use like paint. You have your satin matte glazes that you can layer. You have your celadon glazes that can layer or mix. And then you have your Potter's Choice glazes that you don't really want to mix, but will do a great job with the layering. Now, when it comes to prepping your piece and getting it ready, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your bisque fired piece, and you want to get a damp sponge and wipe off all the dust that comes from being in the kiln or maybe sitting around for a while, because you want that glaze to stick. So you want to wipe it down. If you have any sharp spots, say along the bottom, or any chunks that are sticking out that are sharp, sand those down a little bit. You don't need to do a whole lot, okay? You're just trying to keep something from getting sharp, because when the glaze gets fired, it will be like glass and it'll make it even sharper. So that's just for getting rid of high spots or weird spots. You're not trying to sand the entire thing, okay? Now I've already wiped this piece down and it's ready to go. Now I'm going to do obsidian on it because I want to do some other interesting things. So we're going to take the glaze right out of the pint. That way we're not dumping it into a pallet and then wasting a lot of glaze, because the glaze can get pretty expensive that way. So you're going to have to share amongst yourselves. But my first round of glazing, I'm going to go up and down. Okay? And don't think of it like when you're painting, you really are trying to spread the paint out a lot. This, we're really trying to get a layer on there, like a glazed donut, right? Glaze. So we're really trying to put a good layer on there, so don't be afraid to just kind of overlap it. Now, once I get all the way around, I'm going to let that dry all the way before I put my next layer on. It's going to take a couple minutes, be patient. The next layer I do, I'm going to go back and forth, so I'm going to change my brush direction. Now, I painted this side earlier. You can see what it looks like when it's wet. You can see it's already drying, right? You can see what it looks like when it's dry, okay? So for the next round, I'm going to be going left, right, so I can get a really good coat on there, okay? So that is some Glazing 101. Again, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to go over, but you'll learn as you go. You have a lot of options that you can do and some really cool things. So real quick, I'm going to walk you over. On the website, on the Google Classroom, we have a glaze combos slideshow that will show you all the different combinations from all these examples I have back here. It'll have a picture of the piece before it's fired with a piece of paper showing you what colors were on there. This is the blue midnight over top of fire brick. Okay, and it'll show you what that looks like before, and it'll show you what it looks like after. So we have a slideshow showing you all these examples and what they're going to turn out like. There's lots of cool things you can do with glaze. Hopefully that helps you get started, and I'll see you guys next time.